Russian and Chinese hackers have planted disruptive sleeper programs into America's power grid. Now we're going to find out all the scary details and how we can fix the breach in The Loop. Joining me from New York to help make sense of it all, senior reporter for Forbes, Andy Greenberg is here. Welcome to The Loop, Andy. How are you?
Thanks. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, sir. We've heard for a while now that the U.S. power grid and other infrastructure are vulnerable to attacks by hackers. That's nothing new, but it seems now we have some sort of confirmation that it's actually actively happening. Is that true? Do we have confirmation? What do we know?
Well, basically, you're right, exactly, that we have known for years, or we've at least had some evidence that this is going on. I've talked to sources that said that back as early as 2003, modern-day KGB agents, like FSB agents in Russia, have been getting into the grid and things like that. So essentially, this is just a kind of semi-official stamp on the news for the first time. And here's basically what we know is that hackers, seemingly from Russia or China, and China, have gotten access to the grid, water system, sewage. We don't really know what other utilities, and they've planted malicious software that could someday be used to shut down those systems.
Is that, I mean, are these networks really that vulnerable? I barely trust Gmail. Why would someone that has access to sewage control systems in our power grid, why would they put that online?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the fact is, utilities weren't aware for years even that their systems were even connected to the internet. The fact is, they thought that there was a kind of air gap between their critical infrastructure systems and their networks, and then over time those have slowly been connected, and many times the utilities didn't even know that they'd been penetrated, and it was just these unnamed government officials who warned them eventually.
Right. You give the wrong technician access to administrator privileges. He installs Pagel, and he also installs a backdoor, which completely cripples the entire U.S. I'm sure that's how it goes down. But all right, the Wall Street Journal article broke about this earlier today, and as you said, the information was coming from a senior intelligence official. But why would this info come out now? If it's been happening potentially since 2003, why did this leak when it did?
Well, that's the right question to ask, because we've known for years, maybe even as far back as the mid-90s, that this kind of thing was happening. We've got confirmation now, but what's really important is why this came out now. I think that there are probably two real important political reasons. One is that next week, the Obama administration's 60-day review of this big cybersecurity initiative launched by the Bush administration is going to come out. So we're going to get a report about to what degree the government needs to shore up its cyber defenses and what degree the private sector needs to cooperate. Last week, there was another bill, a bill that came out on the Senate floor from two senators, and they're arguing that we need to shore up the government's cyber defenses, but then also enforce that, extend it to the private sector, all these critical infrastructure systems. So it seems to me that it's more than just a coincidence, that this is, in some ways, some senior officials trying to show us how badly things are going,
right,
trying to kind of shame these public utilities into getting in the game, into, cooperating with these really important regulations.
Andy, should we really expect change from them, though, now that it's public? I mean, are they just going to buy a suite license for Norton and install it on a couple machines and call it done? Because, I mean, if they've known about it for years, it sounds like they haven't done anything to be proactive to actually stop it.
Well, it's a good point, but I think that this kind of thing, like when this comes out, the fact that I'm here talking on the show is the kind of, public shaming that it might take to get these utilities to pay attention. At the same time,
that is true. Yeah. Andy, real quick, I'm curious, because we said that these attacks are coming from Russia and China. Of course, those governments, at least the Chinese embassy, they deny it up and down.
Right.
Do we think it's coming from their government, or is this just coming from some guy at a cyber cafe in between StarCraft matches?
I mean, the fact is, if you corner any cybersecurity researcher, they'll tell you that they have no idea. There's no actual way to track this stuff. There's the use of proxy servers, or placing the server that this malware is phoning home to in a different country. All those things can be used to spoof the origin of these attacks. So the fact is, we're not actually going to know, and that's one of the scary things about the idea of cyber warfare, is that if we were under a full-scale attack, we wouldn't actually know where it was coming from. We wouldn't know how to respond, whether this was like an official declaration of war.
Oh,
it's not like Pearl Harbor or something.
That's absolutely chilling. I'll find solace in the fact that the satellite still works and the studio lights are on. So thank you, Andy, for joining us. We appreciate you keeping us in the loop.